Yeah, I'm here today to say that slavery still exists. It was in the spring of 2006 that I found myself walking down a street in Bangkok. And it was my hope to experience a new culture, to see the world, and what happened that day would change my life forever. I can go back to the place right now. The hustle and the bustle of the street, the cars, the traffic, the honking, it was chaos. There was actually a weight that I could feel in the air. It was like darkness looming around me. It was my first trip to a red light district. My wife and I quickly noticed that there was these kids that were playing. And at first I was like, oh, look how cute the kids are. They're so adorable. Look at their face. There's this one girl. She couldn't have been more than 5 years old. And I quickly realized that she wasn't just playing. She was working. She was selling these flowers. And I was like, awesome. She's providing for her family. That is so amazing. And what I experienced when I saw that day is what I know today to be a $32 billion industry. It's the selling of human beings. And so my host said quickly, brought me to reality, and she said, she's not selling those flowers for herself. She's actually selling them for someone else. And I'm like, really? And it turns out that her mom actually worked in a brothel nearby. And she was selling these flowers for her trafficker. It was crazy. The statistic that came to my mind after that was that 95% of the kids that are born into brothels end up with the same destiny as their mom. Literally, in that moment, my arms weren't big enough to be able to grab all the kids and bring them to safety and bring them to home with me. My heart, my mind, I was completely undone. And on that day, modern day slavery had a face, and she was a 5-year-old girl. The problem of modern day slavery is an epidemic. It's global. There's estimated 27 million slaves in the world today, right now. In the last 2 minutes since I've been talking, since I started this talk, an estimated 4 kids will be bought or sold around the world in 2 minutes. That's over 1 million every year. Crazy. This is happening in 161 countries, including our own, including this city, and probably yours as well. Forced labor, bonded labor, sex trafficking, human trafficking, domestic servitude. The list goes on and on. There's so many variations, there's so many forms of this, and it's so complex. Statistics after statistics, ridiculously complex. This is a complex problem with a complex solution. And you might be asking the question well, why are you telling us this? Well, first of all, you need to know. I have a feeling in an audience like this, you guys already know. But more than that, you guys have complex problems that you're trying to solve. And the solutions are complex. And so my hope today is that I'm able to just share one small little sliver of something that we learned on our team, and that it will help you carry that thing and help you achieve that goal that you have of solving a complex problem, because you have the solution. Let me tell you how we got there. We gathered all these nonprofit leaders, amazing people that were leading the nonprofits, the anti-trafficking and slavery organizations around the world. They were like legends, and we brought them to Atlanta for 24 hours to this offline freedom summit. And we said, hey, how can we help end the problem? How can we help end slavery? And they said the usual answers, right? Capacity building, more funding, we need better teams and more field offices. And we're like, yeah, we know all that. You guys are amazing. There was someone from the State Department and from media. They were all there. Great answers, great ideas. But we said, what else can we do? And they said, well, we need more people to know about this. We kind of feel isolated a little bit. And we're like, we've got the plan for you. We've got the perfect plan. We have these 18 to 25-year-old college students, and they're crazy. Okay, they're also broke, but let's get beyond that. They're just crazy. What do? They look for, they first of all, they eat ramen noodles as like a food group. And then second, they scrounge in their couches to look for change to buy Taco Bell when they get tired of ramen noodles. But I'm telling you, when their heart is captured by something, they go for it. That's our answer. And they looked at me with kind of blank stares like you're looking at me right now with. And they were like, okay, continue. And we just said, hey, when they get excited, they do something. And they said, well, who's going to pay for this? That's the problem, is none of us have the money to pay for it. And I said, they're going to pay for it. And they said, you said they were broke. And we said, yeah, but when they get excited and when their heart starts pounding about something, they fund it with radical generosity. And they said, well, let's go for it then. They were desperate. Okay, these people, great people, but they were desperate. And so we're getting all excited about an idea of a national awareness campaign. We're just ideating, collaborating together. And then Gary Haugen, this guy is a legend. He founded International Justice Mission. He has a flat top that precedes him. That's just manly. His flat top's so manly. But beyond that, he's like this force in any room. And he steps in, we're all kind of sitting around a table, and he kind of leans into the moment, and he said, hey, I just need to say this. Awareness will never end modern day slavery. And we all kind of sunk back in our seats. And then he said, but modern day slavery will never end without awareness. And we started fist pumping, and as we're fist pumping, he said, awareness is doing the work. And so in that day, in that moment, this idea of a 68-day national awareness campaign started. Our goal was to tell the entire nation that slavery still exists. We had no logo, we had no name, we had no Instagram, we had none of that. All we had was an idea. And remember, we had a really complex problem. And so we were immediately faced with this challenge that we had to uncomplicate the complicated. That sounds simple. It's not. We had to uncomplicate the complicated. We had to figure out a way to clarify the overwhelming. This was so important to us if we were going to get anywhere. Because we believe this, that in order to amplify the message, we first had to simplify. And so we set out for it. And so with that group of people, we started trying to see if we could all get on the same page together. And this ended up turning into our coalition partner, that the End It movement was completely pushing towards this coalition partner, these 7 partners. And the first learning lesson that we learned was that it was so hard to get anyone to agree on anything. It was crazy. They were all working in the space, but some of them thought you need to do restoration this way, and some of them thought this was the answer, and some of them thought no government, no private. And we were like, okay, what's the problem? We remembered we have to simplify. So the problem was slavery still exists. Can we at least agree on that? Does everyone in the room agree on that? Okay, slavery still exists. Okay, and it's wrong. Okay, we got that. So that was our problem. And then we had to say, what's our solution? Our solution was that we wanted to shine a light on slavery, because it wasn't in the forefront. It was kind of off to the side. People weren't talking about it as much as they need to talk about it. We aren't talking about it as much as we need to talk about it. So the problem, the solution. Well, what happened was we quickly realized that we had to be okay with being incomplete. In order to be effective, you have to be okay with being incomplete. Because our goal was to amplify, and to amplify, we had to simplify. And what happened then was kind of fast forward, we got our act together, kind of, and then we said, oh, it's time to launch. And on February 1st, we launched with a national full-page ad in the USA Today. It was simple. It was really, really simple. I would love to tell you that it was the most effective thing we did. It wasn't. But what it did is it gave a sense of legitimacy to our initial constituents that were saying, we're going to push this to the forefront. They were like, we're in the USA Today. That's I can't believe, how did we do that? And then where we really started to gain some steam was just a few weeks later, on February 27th, we launched something called the Disappear Day. This was our kind of real clever idea of saying, hey, we want to shout to the world that slavery still exists. And so the way we're going to do that is by being silent. And we just kind of lucked into this one. But let me tell you what happened. What happened was we knew that a bunch of people love social media, Facebook and Twitter and Instagram, and some people are really addicted to social media, especially Instagram. And so we knew that by being silent, we were going to be effective because on that day, we were going to turn all of our profile pictures black, and we were just going to say, in honor and in solidarity of the 27 million who've disappeared, we're going to disappear for a day. Which is pretty hard to do if you're addicted to social media, but it's amazing when you start scrolling through it and you see all these black boxes. It's really powerful. Because in that moment, again, another learning lesson we had, that simple is powerful. And that was the day, literally for us in the 68-day journey, that we started recognizing that people stopped listening to us on what they should do for End It movement, and they stopped like doing the End It movement, and they started to be the End It movement. And at that point, we couldn't keep track of it anymore. It was this like grassroots, groundswell thing where like all of these people started running with all these crazy ideas. And we were just like trying to catch up by like searching like the hashtag End It movement. And we came across these students at the University of Kentucky that were like super creative. And they had this pancake social that they do. And it was like a big deal on campus, I guess. And they said, hey, we want to tell our entire campus about End It movement, and we have this pancake social. How could we incorporate it? And they said, I know, let's make the pancakes red, which I don't know was a good health decision at the moment, but they're college students. But they decided to make the pancakes red, and this huge campus-wide event, all the pancakes were red. And what was the question everyone asked? Why are the pancakes red? And they said, because there's 27 million slaves in the world, and we want you to know about it. They figured out in their context, in their kind of do-it-yourself world, how to be the movement. And it just continued to go from there. Another thing we learned was you had to be clear and you had to be consistent with the brand messaging. Our logo was this really simple red X. There's nothing profound about the simple red X except for that it's simple. It's simple, and many of you guys had to try to like build logos and brands. It's really hard to get simple, but this became a statement for the 27 million, and it became a statement for a movement. It was crazy. There's this declaration that kind of surfaced that says, I'm in it to end it. And again, it was this consistent brand messaging. I'm in it to end it. And one of the things that it did is it actually it was a tad bit provocative, if I could use that word, because people are declaring, I'm in it to end it. But it also asked the question, are you in it to end it? And you kind of had to answer. And everyone was like, what do you mean? And so students and families and people started carrying this. And all of a sudden, this wasn't an 18 to 25-year-old thing. This had gone way further and way farther because we had this brand that existed. I would love to tell you that this was all pre-thought. It kind of just happened. And now we're kind of looking back and say, wow, some of that stuff was really good. How'd that happen? And we didn't have the plan. But as the groundswell continued, we realized that things were starting to get a little bit like out of our control. We had over 700,000 YouTube hits on just a couple videos that we had made and put out. And then Facebook does this. We didn't spend very much money on Facebook advertising because that wasn't kind of our thing. But Facebook does this amazing job of keeping up with impressions and trackbacks and all this kind of stuff that I don't understand because that's not the world I'm in. But we found that the 13 to 17-year-olds, which was like the college students' little brothers and sisters, and then their parents, like the 45 to 55-year-old crowd, was really into Facebook. And in the course of the campaign, we had 58 million Facebook impressions. And we were just like, that's amazing. And they like give you all those charts about it. That's crazy. And then celebrities started getting on board. One of my favorite parts about that is that we didn't go to celebrities first. And it was easy to go to celebrities because the celebrities that got on board had already realized that there was this grassroots movement. So everyone from the all-American girl, Carrie Underwood, to TV cult icon from whether it's Lost or Vampire Diaries, whichever stream you like to roll in, Ian Somerhalder, there was Matt Hasselbeck and Josh Hamilton, and then of course Nick Cannon, who's most famously married to Mariah Carey. He has a life of his own, but he's married to Mariah Carey, which is cool. He's on America's Got Talent and some other stuff. But these people, one of the reasons they latched on, one of the reasons they came on was because we had a digestible call to action and a simple plan that they didn't feel like they needed a full doctorate degree on slavery to be able to lift up this cause. Because what happened was they began amplifying our message because it was in a simple form for them to use their voice for. So everything culminated on this day, April 9th, that we coined Shine a Light on Slavery Day. And we did spend weeks and weeks and weeks trying to think and be as creative as we could about what are we going to do on April 9th? Like when we launched on February 1st, we didn't know what we were going to do on April 9th. We were kind of building it as we were, going down the interstate. And so we had all these amazing ideas. And what we landed on was the most simple idea that was on the entire board, any idea. And that was this: to take a red Sharpie and to put a red X on your hand. Now, we knew we were going to blow up social media. We knew we were going to wear it and put posters all over campuses or cities or towns. But it was this red X on people's hands that literally changed us and changed the movement. One of my favorites was my dad. He's 62 years old, love him to death. He texted me at noon on April 9th, and he said, "Hey, son, this red X on my hand, it actually works." I'm like, "Thanks, Dad." He said it's lunchtime, and I've already had 5 people ask me why I have a red X on my hand. And he works in hospitals, and he said, and I got to tell them about End It movement. I got to tell them about the 27 million slaves and that I'm in it to end it. And I said, that's awesome. That was happening all over the nation. But probably the most meaningful story to me was there's a YMCA. And on the morning of April 9th, there was these moms that were taking their 4 and 5-year-old kids to the YMCA to go in the play area while they did their morning workout. And at this YMCA, the kids started filing in, and the worker, the YMCA lady that was working in the play area, she noticed that there was red X's on a bunch of these kids' hands. And she, like you and I would say, why do you guys all have red X's on your hands? And these 4 and 5-year-olds started telling her about the End It movement and started saying that today was Shine a Light on Slavery Day, and we're part of the End It movement. And as the last mom was coming to pick up her kid from the play area, she noticed that the worker had taken a red marker and put a red X on her hand. And the mom said to the lady at the YMCA, she said, "That's awesome, you're part of the End It movement?" She was like, I knew nothing about it until these 5-year-olds started telling me about it. And I wanted to be a part of it. And so I went and found a marker and I put a red X on my hand. And so my question for you this afternoon is your message simple enough to be amplified by 5-year-olds? Have you crafted, okay, let me give a caveat. We didn't pre-think this. This totally luck, I never thought of this. We realized after the fact, we didn't design it this way. It just happened to be this way. Can a 5-year-old be your brand champion? Because I know this, that slavery is a complex issue with complex solutions. And probably what you're working on is too, but it can't be a whole lot more complex than the global problem of slavery. And so if a 5-year-old can do that, and if a 5-year-old in America can use their voice for that 5-year-old girl that I saw on the street in Bangkok, if a 5-year-old in America can be a voice for the voiceless in Bangkok, then I believe that together we can figure out solutions and we can figure out how to simplify our message so we can amplify it around the world. So let's go change the world together. Use 5-year-olds if we have to. Hopefully we get to. And let's simplify so that we can amplify. Thank you.
Awesome. All right, Bryson, so I love the message of simplifying your idea. Do you think that it's possible that you can do that yourself? I think about all these organizations that have been plotting territory, right? They've been plotting this fight against slavery for years, but they didn't come up with this concept. It took an outside voice to speak in, to tell their story more simply. Do you think that's a common practice that people need to think about, inviting creative talent into their projects?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, we had to, and we would consider ourselves mildly creative where I work, but we had all sorts of people and agencies that we hired that we were using for help that we were collaborating with. I can tell a quick story in that we were doing this with our coalition partners, and one of them is the Players Project, amazing organization based out of DC, and they have the National Human Trafficking Hotline. And I was kind of sharing like the 3-hour version of this talk, not the 18-minute version. And we were just talking. We were in DC a few weeks ago, and Brad Miles, who's the executive director, said, like a light bulb went off. And he said, we call our human trafficking hotline like 7 different names. He was like, we never thought about how like a clear, consistent brand messaging. And it wasn't us that did anything. It was just he needed someone else to help him have the light bulb turn on. So I would encourage everyone to do that.
Yeah, we talk about in this community, there's 3 different communities that come together. There's the entrepreneurs, the business entrepreneurs that are here. There's the nonprofit activists that are in the room, and there's the cultural creatives.
Yeah.
And I think for any problem-solving thing that you're pursuing, you need all 3 of those to speak into it together. So, anyways, thank Bryson for sharing his story.
Yeah.